So around 2 years ago, Manchester United spent what I would say was a pretty hefty fee bringing Andre Onana into the club in the hope and the idea being that he would be our #1 goalkeeper for the foreseeable future. He would be someone who was reliable and could be the foundation for the rest of the team. However, his 2 years at Old Trafford have been questionable, shall we say. Andre Onana has not performed, he has not produced, he's not a goalkeeper, which sort of breeds confidence into the rest of the team. It's becoming a bit of a problem. You are only as good as your weakest link as a football club, and Onana is a weak link at the moment, and a lot of people want him replaced. The good thing is, right now, there's some great options on the market. Now, the first player that we are going to talk about is Emi Martinez, who of course currently plays for Aston Villa. And the reason we're going to talk about him is because he has been heavily linked with a move to the club. He's the only goalkeeper who actually potentially feels close at the moment, granted for a hefty fee. So would Emi Martinez be a good signing? Well, the first thing you are getting is a leader. You're getting a great personality, someone who, is him. He has that vibe about him, the confidence. He commands the box. He is a dominant goalkeeper. He takes responsibility in most actions, and I would say he's a leader of his back line. He organises his defence in front of him, and he's just a great personality who steps up in the biggest moments when you need him. And a large part of that is his shot stopping. He is, generally speaking, a very good shot stopper. He's great at the fundamental job of a goalkeeper, which is stopping the ball going in the back of the net, particularly in big moments like penalty shootouts or World Cup final saves in the last minute to take your country through. So, Martinez does produce in the big moments. He is a good shot stopper, apart from the errors, which are a bit too common for my liking personally. But outside of that, he's also a good cross stopper. He claims the cross as well. And again, importantly, we say this with outfield players, but perhaps don't talk about it with goalkeepers enough. He is used to the league. So in terms of deliveries into the box, someone like David De Gea, for example, who was, of course, eventually an amazing goalkeeper. But when he first came to the league, physically, he really struggled. Martinez isn't a player who could even have that question mark anywhere near him, because we already know that physically he's very capable and actually good, generally good, at commanding the box. The only problem I have with Martinez is, one, the mistakes are too frequent for me, and they're quite high-profile mistakes. And the second thing is, you guys know me. I like a ball-playing goalkeeper. I like someone who can aid your build-up and that can problem-solve in build-up, help you play out from the back and play through an opposition's high press. I don't think Martinez is very good at that. Now, he's better than what he was, say, 5 years ago when he left Arsenal, so he has improved. Fair play to him. But I don't think he's a great passer. I'm not sure he's a player that you can give the ball under pressure and he's going to sort of dance his way past the forward, which sounds daft, but you do actually occasionally need it. Sometimes you are going to get a dodgy back pass and you need to be able to deal with it. Martinez isn't that sort of player for me. He's not someone who I feel can take forwards out of the game with an incisive pass into midfield. So basically, if you want a good shot stopper and someone who claims crosses pretty well, Martinez isn't a bad option at all. Quite expensive and makes mistakes, but apart from that, not bad. But if you want a modern day goalkeeper who's going to solve problems in the first phase, you're looking elsewhere. Now, the second player that we are going to look at on this list is Milinkovic-Savic. No, not this guy who used to get linked to the club a lot, but this guy, Milinkovic-Savic, who actually once was a Manchester United player, but there were issues and complications, which meant that he never actually played for the football club. What do you get with this man? Well, you get an absolute beast. He's 6'8". Yeah, that's pretty big. That's a pretty dominant guy. And interestingly, he uses that size and power actually into his long kicking. He's almost famous, if you like, for his ability to play the ball long. Now, not necessarily with pinpoint accuracy in terms of the percentages, although largely that is dependent on the forwards that you're passing to. But the actual distance on these passes is unfathomable. It's insane how far this guy can kick the ball. On goal kicks, I have seen him literally kick the ball to the opposition's penalty area and the ball is still in the air when it reaches. That's insane and quite an interesting weapon, particularly in a modern game where teams are trying to press high, they're trying to put you under pressure and commit people quite high up the pitch. That ability to just go past all of them with a long ball over the top, and then you might have a runner trying to get onto that ball, is a really interesting idea. Now, importantly with this guy, you also get a good shot stopper as well. Just had his best shot stopping season from what I've seen. He prevented the most goals in Europe's top 7 leagues, which in itself is pretty impressive. Yeah, he's a good shot stopper. He's good playing with the ball. That's not bad. I wouldn't necessarily say he is an expert, though, with the ball playing. The long passes are good, but I wouldn't say he's someone who manipulates the ball really well in the first phase. When you're playing a shorter game, trying to play through a press, although Amorim hasn't exactly asked his goalkeeper to do that so far, so maybe we don't need that. The bigger concern I have with this guy is shots that are coming near his body and he's parrying. I just don't think he's always parrying it into a great area. And we've obviously seen the problem with that at United with Onana. If shots are coming in and, you know, it's great that you're saving them, but if you're then dropping them back around the penalty spot, it's a problem. If your centre-backs aren't reactive enough and the opposition forwards are, you are going to give up some cheap goals, and I do fear that Milinkovic-Savic has that a little bit. At 28 years old, is he a player that is going to iron that out of his game? Possibly. You know, goalkeepers tend to peak much later than outfield players, so maybe he could, but I just have a few question marks. I think the way that I see this is, if you were signing him, I think he's a really nice stopgap. You go get him quite cheap, and maybe he's your number one for 2 years before you go get like an absolute amazing goalkeeper. Now, the third player on the list is actually one of my favourite options for the goalkeeper position. That is Bulka, who currently plays for Nice in France. Now, what you're getting here is, I would say, a modern day goalkeeper in the sense that he's good with his feet, his footwork is good, he can pass the ball from the back, which we'll come back to in a second, but also that he is physically commanding. He's got good reflexes as well, he's a good shot stopper, he's kind of ticking all the boxes. He's around 6'6" tall, which that's a good size. That's a good size for a goalkeeper. I would say 6'5 plus is ideally where you want your goalkeeper to be, so 6'6 is great. It makes him a big physical presence, very good at dealing with crosses into the penalty area, which is always great to see from a goalkeeper. Someone that can come out and take pressure off the centre-backs is just huge, particularly in, you know, sort of the dying moments of a game where you're really under the cosh. Perhaps you've got a 1-goal lead, for example, and the opposition are throwing the kitchen sink at you. Having someone like Bulka who can come out and claim the cross, he's big, it takes off so much pressure. The other thing I like about Bulka is he wears a number 1. You know, we're talking about number 1 goalkeepers here. He's the only one on the list who actually wears the number 1 on his back. Not really important, but just something that I thought I'd point out. I don't know, it interests me. Something else that interests me is his ball playing, and the fact that it's two-footed ball playing. It's pretty good footwork. You know, he's can manipulate the ball. Again, if he's getting one of those sort of dodgy back passes, which goalkeepers hate, he can manipulate that ball. He can shift it under his body, he can move it to the other side, and then look to play out off either foot. I think that's a really good sign. The only, like, criticism I have really of Bulka is, again, just does that physicality transfer well to the Premier League in terms of perhaps some bigger strikers trying to bundle him over? I think it would actually be alright. I think he would be fine because I just rate him as a goalkeeper. I think he's a good player. The other question would be over his sweeping and perhaps his timing of when he's sweeping and coming out. You know, if you go too quick, people can go around you or lift the ball over you. If you come out too late, you don't really decrease the angle enough and you're beaten a bit too easily. But I do think Bulka is a really nice option on the goalkeeper list this summer. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because we're not in European competition, we can sign from Nice this summer. Let me know if I'm wrong though. Now, the next keeper on the list is actually the youngest player in today's video, 23 years old, Chevalier, of course, again, playing in France. And I would say this is one of the hottest prospects in terms of, you know, the general opinion of him seems to be quite high. I think he's quite rated. I think a lot of people are looking at him. They've got their eyes on him. I think he will make a move this summer. I think he will have a new club. And it's clear to see why. He's a good goalkeeper. He's got amazing reflexes, which is great for shot stopping, you know, reaction saves, last minute saves. He's really good in that area. Importantly, he's also really good with the ball at his feet. And again, we are talking about a two-footed goalkeeper, which is, it is useful. A goalkeeper that gets trapped one side, it can be a problem when you're trying to play through the first phase because the opposition can sort of use that as a pressing trigger. For example, if the ball is forced onto the right foot and the keeper just isn't good with his right foot, then the opposition might go a little bit harder to try and catch you out. I think with Chevalier, what we've got here is a young player who can play with both feet. And again, I know a lot of people will say you just don't need that with a goalkeeper, but in the modern game, when the high press is such a big factor, possession is key. I think it's really useful. So I think it is something that would be important for Manchester United. And I think Chevalier would bring that. And I would say he's, on the ball, less mistake prone than Andre Onana. I think he's more confident. Also, not really a goalkeeper that likes to go long, which perhaps is something that you guys might like. We have seen Onana over the past few seasons regularly trying to spray a ball long, and it just not working. It sails out for a throw-in, it goes straight to a centre-back, we overturn possession, and it's like, what was the point in that? Chevalier, unless he was really told to, doesn't like to play in that way. He wants to keep the ball a little bit deeper in these deep positions, play it shorter, and try and problem solve, which is great. The concern I have with him, and he's 23 years old, so there's going to be concerns because that's very young for a goalkeeper, is just that he's not dominant at all. You know, crosses into the penalty area. I'm talking about relieving pressure from your centre-backs. This young man, It's not his game. Now, he's 23, so that can change in 4 years' time. It might be very different. Of course, at Manchester United, there's a lot of pressure to perform immediately. Would the fans, would the media give him the time to adapt and improve that side of his game? I don't know. Again, for someone like De Gea, again, physically he struggled when he first came in, but went on to be amazing. Perhaps this young man could do something similar and perhaps bulk up or become more confident with the way that he uses his body and dominate the box more. He's not the tallest goalkeeper in the world, so he will probably always have a sort of cap and a ceiling in that aspect. I think he's a really good young player. I think, again, really nice on the ball. He's a confident young goalkeeper. He's a good shot stopper. His reflexes are great. But I do just worry, if you can't really command your box, you're going to have limitations. Now, the last player on this list that I want to talk about, a couple of years ago, was probably one of the biggest names in the goalkeeping world. I'm, of course, talking about Maignan, the French goalkeeper who currently plays for Milan. This guy was tipped to be the next big goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And he's perhaps not ever reached that height, but he's still a very good player. He's very competent, and again, your modern-day goalkeeper. He's someone who wants to play out from the back, two-footed, and solve problems. I'm repeating myself a little bit, but that's still great to have. A two-footed goalkeeper who can solve problems, I love it. What is also interesting about Maignan, though, is that I would say he is the first player on this list who we can start talking about sweeping. He loves rushing off his line to deal with balls in behind. Now, I don't really know at this moment in time if that's something that Amorim really looks for in a goalkeeper. It's difficult to say, but it is a weapon. If you can squeeze high and press the opposition as high as physically possible, and then have your backline, of course, joining that press to go as a cohesive unit, to go as a team and in a high press, having a goalkeeper that can then help you out and sort of sweep in this space behind is really, really useful, and Maignan does that. So I think that is why he was tipped to be one of the big modern day goalkeepers, because he can pass with the ball really nicely, a great passer to be honest in the first phase, also really good sweeping actions. That is sort of the modern day goalkeeper. He's probably been limited a little bit though by the inconsistency in his shot stopping. He seems to have seasons where he's really quite impressive and stops a lot of goals and is suddenly top of the list again as an amazing goalkeeper. Then he'll have a season where he doesn't perform quite as well. He's at an age now where he needs to find consistency. Old Trafford could be the place for him to do that. And if he could, then immediately you are getting yourselves one of the best goalkeepers in the world. It's always difficult with goalkeepers to gauge who's the best and things like that. But I think this guy would be up there if he could develop consistency. The only, absolute standout weakness I would say that he has is, again, it's about commanding the box. And it is always a bit of a red flag for me because I just love a goalkeeper that takes pressure off defenders. If you're having someone who's a bit glued to his line, he's not aggressive enough coming out into these positions. And when he is, he sort of flaps a little bit and doesn't get there. That's always going to be a real concern for me. And this is why in the goalkeeper market at the moment, I'm a little bit confused because I think Onana's obviously got a lot of flaws and it is a problem. It is a problem. You need confidence from your goalkeeper to go through the rest of the team. And Onana does not bring that in the slightest. However, every option I try and find seems to either be at an age where I just don't think they can correct their weaknesses, or so young that they have a lot of weaknesses in their game, which they'll probably address in the future. But will they get the time at Manchester United, the scrutiny, the pressure? Would they get the time to address those areas? That's why I get a little bit stuck on goalkeepers, and it's why I haven't been speaking about it massively. I will also never claim to be a goalkeeping expert. It's not my area of expertise. Today has just been my opinion. I would love to hear your thoughts, though, in the comments down below. Which of these 5 goalkeepers do you like the most? Is there a different option that you think United should bring in, and why? Are there any strengths and weaknesses of these players in today's video that I haven't discussed that you've picked up on? If so, again, let me know in the comments, because when it comes to goalkeepers, I do need a little bit of help, so help me please in the comments. Apart from that though, I believe we are finished for today's video. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, get notifications on, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.